Welcome to Heartline Stories. Today's story follows a young boy named Sam who's struggling with homelessness and searching for a place to belong. One stormy night, he ends up at a mall entrance, desperate for shelter. But when the mall owner, Mr. Thompson, finds him, his life takes an unexpected turn. The kind owner offers him a job and a chance for a fresh start. Little does Sam know, this new beginning will lead to an even bigger life-changing choice. Will Sam's past catch up with him? Or will he finally find the happiness and family he's been longing for? Stay tuned and let us know where you're watching from. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories. It was a chilly night in the small town of Maple Grove, and the lights from the local mall were the only thing that brightened the dark streets. A young boy, no older than 12, stood near the entrance of the mall, holding a ragged backpack. His clothes were torn, and his face looked tired from days of walking with no place to call home. His name was Sam. Sam had been living on the streets for weeks, ever since he had run away from his uncle's house. His uncle wasn't a bad person, but Sam couldn't take the constant arguing anymore. He needed peace. He thought he could find it in the big city, but things hadn't gone as planned. That night, Sam sat down on the cold concrete outside the mall. He wrapped his jacket around himself, hoping for some warmth. It was the only place that seemed safe enough for him to sleep for a few hours. But the truth was, he hadn't slept well for weeks, and tonight was no different. He closed his eyes and tried to forget about his hunger and loneliness. Inside the mall, the lights slowly began to dim as the workers started to lock up for the night. The last few shoppers were finishing up, and soon the mall would be empty. But as the mall owner, Mr. Thompson, was heading out, he noticed Sam sitting at the entrance, asleep on the cold pavement. Mr. Thompson was a well-known figure in town. He was kind, fair, and had a reputation for always trying to do the right thing. But seeing a young boy sleeping outside his mall made him pause. He walked over and gently shook Sam's shoulder. "Hey, kid, are you all right?" Mr. Thompson asked softly. Sam woke up, his eyes blinking in the dim light. For a moment, he looked confused, and then fear crossed his face. He quickly stood up, trying to gather his things. I'm fine, sir. I'm just waiting for the morning," Sam mumbled, his voice shaky. Mr. Thompson could see the worry in Sam's eyes. He was a grown man, and he could tell when a kid was in trouble. He sighed and took a step closer. "Why don't you come with me inside?" Mr. Thompson offered. "It's too cold out here for you to be sleeping on the ground. You can rest inside until we figure things out." Sam hesitated. He had been taught to be cautious, especially around strangers, but something about Mr. Thompson's calm voice made him feel a little safer. "I don't know," Sam said quietly. "I don't want to cause any trouble." Mr. Thompson smiled gently. "You're not causing any trouble, kid. Everyone needs a little help sometimes. Let me help you." After a long moment, Sam nodded. He didn't know what else to do, so he followed Mr. Thompson inside. The warmth of the mall felt like a dream compared to the cold air outside. Inside, Mr. Thompson led Sam to the small office in the back of the mall. It wasn't much, just a desk and some chairs, but it was a safe place for the moment. He offered Sam a cup of hot chocolate, and for the first time in weeks, Sam felt like he could breathe. Mr. Thompson sat down across from him, his eyes kind but serious. "Now tell me what's going on. Why are you out here alone?" Sam felt a lump in his throat. It was hard to talk about what had happened, but something in Mr. Thompson's face made it easier to open up. Slowly, he told him about running away from his uncle's house, about how he had tried to make it on his own, and how he had ended up on the streets. He told Mr. Thompson that he was scared and didn't know what to do. When Sam finished speaking, Mr. Thompson didn't say anything for a moment. He looked down, thinking carefully. Sam fidgeted nervously, unsure of what would happen next. Would Mr. Thompson call the police? Would he send Sam back to his uncle? Finally, Mr. Thompson spoke, his voice calm but firm. "Sam, I'm glad you trusted me to tell me what's going on, but running away isn't the answer, especially when there are people who want to help you. I can't let you stay out there on your own, but I'm not going to send you back to a place that makes you unhappy either." Sam looked up, unsure of what Mr. Thompson meant. "So, what do I do now?" Mr. Thompson smiled warmly. "I think you should stay with me for a little while. I have a small guest room upstairs. You can rest, eat, and figure out your next steps. I'll help you get in touch with people who can give you the support you need. You don't have to do this alone." Tears welled up in Sam's eyes. He had never expected this. For once, he felt like someone cared. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice barely audible. Mr. Thompson stood up and gently patted Sam's shoulder. "You don't need to thank me. You just need to take the first step, and we'll figure out the rest together." The next morning, Sam woke up in the guest room of Mr. Thompson's office. The bed was soft, and the warm blankets wrapped around him like a hug. For the first time in a long time, he felt at peace. He had a meal waiting for him on the small table next to his bed, and the smell of fresh pancakes filled the air. It was a simple breakfast, but to Sam, it felt like a feast. As he sat down to eat, Mr. Thompson knocked gently on the door and walked in. "How'd you sleep?" he asked, smiling. Sam looked up at him, surprised by how calm and kind Mr. Thompson was. "I slept better than I have in weeks," he admitted, his voice still shaky but grateful. "Thank you for letting me stay." "Of course," Mr. Thompson said. "We'll get things sorted out. But first, let's talk about what you want to do next. Do you have any plans or people you want to reach out to?" Sam hesitated. He hadn't thought that far ahead. All he knew was that he didn't want to go back to his uncle's house. "I don't really know," Sam replied quietly. I don't have anyone left." Mr. Thompson's face softened. "Well, you have someone now. We'll figure it out together, Sam. But you have to take things one step at a time. You don't need to have all the answers right now." Sam nodded slowly. His heart felt lighter. For the first time in a while, he wasn't alone. He wasn't abandoned. He had someone who cared. As the days passed, Mr. Thompson helped Sam settle in. He gave Sam small tasks around the mall, things that made him feel useful. Sam started helping clean the stores after hours, setting up displays, and even organizing the small office. He felt proud to be contributing. Every night, Mr. Thompson would check in with him, making sure he was doing okay and asking if he had any questions about his future. The people who worked at the mall soon began to notice Sam too. They greeted him with smiles when they saw him helping out. One of the workers, Maria, even offered to teach him how to bake. Sam had always enjoyed cooking, but he had never really thought about baking before. It sounded fun, so he agreed to try. One afternoon, while Sam was baking with Maria, Mr. Thompson stopped by. He looked at Sam, his eyes filled with pride. "You're doing a good job, kid," he said. Sam beamed. "Thanks, Mr. Thompson. It's fun. How would you feel about staying here for a while longer?" Mr. Thompson asked. "I know you've been through a lot, but I think you're finding your way, and I'd be happy to help you with whatever comes next." Sam's heart swelled. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he had a real chance at something better. Maybe he didn't need to figure out everything at once. Maybe he just needed to keep taking one step at a time. "I'd like that," Sam said, his voice steady and sure. Mr. Thompson smiled warmly. "Good, I'm glad. You've got a lot of potential, Sam. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise." Days turned into weeks, and Sam found a new sense of purpose. He kept helping out at the mall, baking with Maria, and working on small projects Mr. Thompson gave him. Slowly, his confidence grew. He even started talking about going back to school. Mr. Thompson connected Sam with a local counselor who could help him sort through his feelings and figure out his next steps. One evening, while they were finishing up some work at the mall, Mr. Thompson sat down next to Sam. "You've come a long way since I first found you that night," Mr. Thompson said quietly. Sam looked up at him, his eyes shining with gratitude. "I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't helped me. I was lost, Mr. Thompson. I didn't know where to turn." "You're not lost anymore," Mr. Thompson said. "You've got a future ahead of you, and I'm going to help you make it a good one." A few weeks later, Sam was settling into his new routine. He woke up every morning with a sense of purpose, excited to help out at the mall and learn new things. Mr. Thompson had connected him with a local school, and Sam was now enrolled in classes. He still wasn't sure what he wanted to do with his life, but for the first time, he felt like he had a choice. One day, while Sam was sorting through some boxes in the back of the mall, Maria came up to him with a smile. "Hey, Sam, Mr. Thompson wants to talk to you," she said. "He says it's important." Sam's heart skipped a beat. He had been working hard, and he wondered if it was something related to the school or maybe the work he had been doing at the mall. He followed Maria to Mr. Thompson's office, feeling a little nervous. Mr. Thompson was sitting at his desk, holding a letter. He looked up when Sam walked in. "Hey, Sam," he said warmly. "Sit down. I've got something to talk to you about." Sam sat across from him, wondering what was going on. "Is everything okay?" he asked. Mr. Thompson smiled, but there was a hint of seriousness in his expression. "I got a call today from your uncle." Sam froze. The mention of his uncle always brought a wave of fear and uncertainty. He hadn't heard from him since he left. He hadn't wanted to go back, but he also knew he couldn't keep running forever. "What did he say?" Sam asked quietly. "Well," Mr. Thompson began, "he said he's sorry for what happened and wants to make things right. He's been worried about you, and he wants to know if you'd be willing to come back home." Sam's heart raced. The idea of going back to his uncle's house brought mixed emotions. He had left because things weren't right there, but now he wondered if maybe his uncle had changed. "I don't know if I can go back," Sam said, looking down at his hands. "I've been doing okay here, and I don't want to go back to feeling lost." Mr. Thompson nodded, understanding. "I can see that. And you've come a long way, Sam. You've built a new life for yourself here. But whatever you decide, I'll support you." Sam sat quietly for a moment, thinking about everything that had happened in the last few weeks. He had found a home at the mall, and Mr. Thompson had shown him kindness when he had none. But his uncle was still family, and he wasn't sure if he could leave that chapter behind. "I don't know what to do," Sam admitted. Mr. Thompson gave him a reassuring smile. "Take your time. You don't have to make any decisions right now. I'll be here for you, no matter what." The next few days were tough for Sam. He couldn't stop thinking about his uncle's offer. He was torn between the life he had started to build with Mr. Thompson's help and the idea of going back to a place he once called home. He talked with Maria, with Mr. Thompson, and even spent some quiet time thinking by himself. He weighed the pros and cons, but no answer seemed clear. Finally, after another long night, Sam made his decision. He wanted to see if things could really be different with his uncle. He owed it to himself to give it one more chance. The next morning, Sam walked into Mr. Thompson's office. His heart was heavy, but he felt a little lighter knowing that whatever happened, he had support. "I've made my decision," Sam said, sitting down in front of Mr. Thompson. Mr. Thompson looked up from his desk. "What's that, Sam?" "I'm going to go back to my uncle's house," Sam said quietly. "But I'm not going alone. I'm going to make sure things are different this time. And if they're not, I'll come back here. You've taught me that I have options, and I don't have to keep running." Mr. Thompson smiled warmly. "I'm proud of you, Sam. That's a brave decision. Whatever happens, just know that you've got people who care about you here." Sam nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "Thank you for everything. You've really changed my life." Mr. Thompson stood up and gave Sam a hug, something Sam wasn't used to, but it felt good. "You don't have to thank me," Mr. Thompson said. "You've done all the hard work. You've already changed your own life." The next day, Sam packed a small bag with a few belongings. He felt a mix of nervousness and hope. He wasn't sure what he would find when he went back to his uncle's house, but he knew that he had to try. After all, he had learned that he didn't have to just accept things as they were. He could choose a different path. Before leaving, he stopped by Mr. Thompson's office one last time. "Are you sure about this?" Mr. Thompson asked, his voice filled with concern. Sam nodded. "I have to see if things can really change. I'm not going back to the way things were. I've learned that much. And if it doesn't work out, I'll come back here. You showed me that I don't have to settle for a life that makes me unhappy." Mr. Thompson smiled. "You've grown so much, Sam. I'm proud of you, no matter what happens." With a final hug and a promise to stay in touch, Sam left the mall and made his way back to his uncle's house. His heart pounded as he walked through the familiar streets, unsure of what to expect. When he reached the house, his uncle was standing outside waiting for him. "Sam," his uncle said, his voice soft, "I'm really sorry for what happened. I didn't realize how badly I had messed up until you left. I want to make things right. Please give me a chance." Sam stood still for a moment, processing his uncle's words. This was the moment that would define whether things could really change. After a long pause, Sam spoke. "I'm willing to try," he said, his voice steady. "But if things go back to the way they were before, I won't stay. I've learned that I deserve better than that." His uncle nodded, looking sincere. "I promise, Sam. I've learned from my mistakes. Let's start fresh." For the first time in a long time, Sam felt a sense of hope. He wasn't sure what the future held, but he knew he had the power to shape it. He had support now. He had options. And no matter what happened, he was no longer the lost boy he had once been. As the days passed, things began to change in his uncle's house. Sam went back to school. His uncle worked hard to be a better guardian, and they slowly rebuilt their relationship. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Sam knew that he had a family again, one that was willing to work on healing and moving forward. But Sam never forgot the lessons he had learned during his time with Mr. Thompson. He knew that he wasn't alone in this world, and if things ever became hard again, he had the strength to make things right and the courage to walk away if needed. Sam's life wasn't just about surviving anymore. It was about thriving, and he knew that whatever came next, he would always have the power to shape his own future.